Hello, everybody. This is my teacher work sample presentation. I completed my 14-day field experience at Chester, Joplin, Inverness Public School, or better known as CJI. I was in the 4th grade class with Miss Carrie Temple. So I'm not going to talk about all of the contextual factors and implications directly, just to save a little bit of time so I can talk more about the unit and reflection and such. So I'm just going to talk about the ones that I feel are the most important. So the first one is regarding the community, is that Liberty County is a rural farming community, much like the rest of the Highline. And so with this, teachers have to factor in those different farming seasons and the potential absences, because there are a lot of family farms around here, and sometimes kids get pulled to finish harvest or finish seeding, and sometimes it's just the way it is around here. The elevators and the seaplanes and the railroads, which are also a part of the ag business and industry, bring job opportunities for people. So sometimes there are kids coming from bigger cities that need help adjusting to the smaller school and the classrooms and the environment. And so sometimes that's on the teacher, is to help them adjust since they're with them most of the day. Regarding the school, the important one is that CJI is a consolidation of Chester and JI public schools. So 3 towns make up a school, which means students have to drive, most of them. There are some that live in Chester, but those who live in Joplin and Inverness have to drive to school every day or ride the bus. What's important in here is that during the winter and early spring, students may have difficulties getting to school due to the cold weather and snow. I know during the first week of my field experience, it was negative 25 degrees, and so I got to witness this firsthand. Students were late to school because their parents' cars wouldn't start, and they lived way in the country, and they ride in with their parents who go to work in town. And so teachers have to be prepared for students to show up late and help them catch up on that missed work. And that was kind of sometimes my job, was to help those kids get caught up. Another thing is that CJI is an MBI school, so those teachers have to make sure that those expectations are being enforced, and they have to plan for hawk time twice a month. And I was lucky enough to get to experience a hawk time, and it's a really neat deal that they have going on there. And then they also have Wednesday school program, which again, teachers have to account for when planning, because that's an hour loss of instructional time, so they can go to their respective churches for church school. Regarding the class, the important one here is that 2 girls and 1 boy go to a Title I classroom throughout the day for various subjects. Specifically, 2, a boy and a girl, go for math, which I will discuss later. So that Title I allows these students one-on-one instruction. Something I found important and I learned during this experience was that communication is key with the Title teacher and the Title I teacher and the Title I room, to ensure that students are receiving that effective instruction and they are succeeding in both classrooms. And with the classroom, the room is small, so there's not a lot of room for activities. So if there are any kinesthetic activities, they have to be done outside of the classroom, or you have to plan for moving desks and moving the table and moving stuff. So some alternatives may have to be used sometimes. And then the second one is that there are few technology resources. So a lot of technology has to be done in a whole group because they just don't have a lot of individual resources as far as the class go, and they get 1 hour a week in the lab, so it's just not ideal. And the teacher, she uses a lot of evidence-based practices and high leverage practices. She implements organizational routines. She talks about students with parents. She provides models. She requires and monitors independent practice. And that's just, a little bit of what she does. She is awesome. And all of these things really help make her classroom a safe environment for learning. Those kids know their routine, they know exactly what they need to be doing and when they need to be doing it. They are a very well-behaved class, very respectful, and she does an awesome job with them. So she made my job easier by being an awesome teacher. So my unit was from the Go Math curriculum, so it was Chapter 9, Fractions and Decimals. I love this unit, I love this experience because she just let me teach it on my own. She just gave me the full reins of the whole book and everything, and so it was a really great experience. The standards in this unit are from the Common Core State Standards, and the unit goal is there if you would like to read it. There were 7 lessons in this unit, and then a pre-assessment, mid-chapter quiz, a review, and then a post-assessment for additional work for the students. But in this unit, the students worked with decimals and fractions and tenths and hundredths, and they used that different information and learned about relating the fractions and decimals and discovering how the components are equivalent, and relating the fractions and decimals to money and problem solving and adding fractional parts and comparing decimals. So they learned a lot of information in this unit. So here's kind of, and there's another slide for it, but the list of lessons and kind of what they pertain to. 9.1 was relating tenths and decimals, and so they used fraction models, shading fraction models, place value charts, and number lines for a lot of these lessons as their strategies. So 9.1 was relate tenths and decimals, 9.2 is relate hundredths and decimals, 9.3 is equivalent fractions and decimals. So as you can see, Go Math does a really nice job of building on that knowledge. And so those kids just keep building on their skills, which I really liked about this program. So 9.4 through 9.7 used a lot of the same strategies, such as the number line charts or number lines and the place value charts and the fraction models. And for example, like on let's see here, 9.5, the problem solving money, there was graphic organizer provided in the book. So they provided scaffolds for the students to help them better learn the material. And as you can see, these lessons just keep building on each other. And a big thing too, I didn't create a separate slide for it, but I'm going to talk about the differentiation for these lessons. They were about the same every day. The pre-instructional group and the instructional group, for the most part, were pretty close, except for the 2 that went to Title I. And so they were provided the same strategies. The difference was that the pre-instructional group got a lot of one-on-one work during independent practice if they needed it, because these kids work well independently. So we really pushed the independent practice and the repetition. And so they were constantly doing math problems. And so the instructional group, they were typically pretty good on their own. So I was able to help the pre-instructional group one-on-one, as well as my mentor teacher. And so that's how we differentiated. And she did an awesome job, or does, I guess, an awesome job of creating that safe classroom environment. Those kids are awesome about asking questions. They feel comfortable coming up and talking to us. And so that made it easier too. We could really tell who needed help and who didn't, because they simply asked. And so that was really helpful. And with the proficient subgroup, those students, they were allowed to go work on any problems that we skipped. They were allowed to work on their ELA and their Math IXL if a Chromebook was available. And then they were allowed to AR read. That's their thing in their classroom, is AR reading when they're done. And so I didn't mess with that. And I didn't mess with the routine too much, because it's already an adjustment enough to have a new teacher come in. And so with the Go Math, it's a lot of repetition and a lot of practice. And so it's not the most engaging thing in the world, but these kids did awesome with it, and they were so well behaved, and they worked really hard. So it was a really fun unit. So here we have some examples of the assessment tools. This is the pre-assessment. I just simply took 10 questions from the post and slapped it on a Word document, changed the numbers, and that was their pre-assessment, because the book didn't really provide one that I could use for comparison. Here, these are what all the worksheets in the book looked like. They had a variety of problems, and then the back was the review problems, so that was really helpful. Here is an example of a worksheet I gave them as a review homework sheet with the shading fraction models. And then here's a review that my mentor teacher created while I was teaching for the next day, which was really helpful. She was awesome about helping me with that type of stuff while I was teaching. And so that's another example there. Then this is the review they did. It's actually 22 problems, but to save some room, I just put 3 pictures up there. I was forgetful and forgot to take a picture of the test, but the test was simply this with different problems. So it's really the same thing. So as far as the analysis goes, the overall gain score was 34.63%. So the pre-instructional group gained about 45.6%, and the instructional group gained 19.73%, which was awesome. You can see here in the chart how well they did. And these names were changed, so don't worry. Those aren't the actual students' names. And a lot of them weren't hitting that 90%, and the instructional group is 60 to 90. Nobody was over 90, so I just kept them in that instructional group for comparison and gain scores there. So the biggest challenge during this unit was the lack of engaging activities with the Go Math curriculum. And I had found some on Teachers Pay Teachers, but we just ran out of time because of those 7 lessons, the 4 additional components of the unit, plus they had 3 days of CRT testing, which cut into our time, which was unfortunate because I found an awesome bingo game and task cards and stuff, which we just didn't get to it because we had to get through that book. And so they did awesome with it and with the repetition, but the most effective strategy was the I do, we do, you do. I think that method and gradually releasing those students really helped build their confidence. And the least effective was group work. And like I said, the lessons weren't the most engaging, but they did awesome. I just made sure I checked for understanding a lot. I tried to relate problems that I created to the students and their interests. So that's how I tried to engage them, since the book wasn't the most fun thing they've ever had to do. Future actions to be more effective. This kind of goes with professional development. I love sitting in a classroom. I feel like that's where I get most of my advice and information. And I know one can research online, and there's a lot of great stuff online, but I love just being in the classroom and going through different classrooms to experience different teachers and how they run things. I just love it, and that's what I would like to do to work on myself as a teacher is go experience more classrooms, ask if you can volunteer and such. I think that there are a lot of great teachers in this area, and there are a lot of veteran teachers on the High Line that have a lot of experience, and you can learn a lot from them. And so I think that that's what I would like to do to become a more effective instructor and to develop my self as a teacher, because there's always room to improve. This unit and this field experience was an incredible opportunity and experience for me. I learned so much about not only teaching, but classroom management, how to communicate with other teachers, how to communicate with parents. I got to witness some parent-teacher interactions. And so overall, this is a really awesome class, and it was a great experience. And I hope Western keeps doing it in the future because I know it helped me, and I'm guessing it helped a lot of other students as well. Thank you for viewing this, and I hope you enjoyed.